Welcome to the Anxious Love Coach podcast, the place to be to create meaningful, conscious, secure, long-term partnerships. Here, we talk relationship anxiety and creating healthy, magnetic dynamics within partnership to help you feel confident and enlivened within committed partnership. My name is Natalie Kennedy, and I'm your host. I'm a relationship anxiety coach and meditation teacher. I've worked with hundreds of clients battling anxiety, and after experiencing extraordinary shifts in my own healing relative to relationships, now combine my personal experience and professional training to help others trust themselves within relationship and in their lives. I've been to the edge and back with my own, now husband, from my own relationship anxiety, and have come out the other side feeling confident about my decision. I want to pass the tools I've learned along to you to help you trust yourself in relationships and also create magnetic, hot dynamics with your partner. I believe lots of mainstream relationship tools today can make us anxious and dissatisfied. So let's jump in and normalize challenges that modern relationships and real people go through, while also giving you tools to trust yourself, drop the shame, and alchemize your messy, twisted relationship truths into profound inner wisdom and inner aliveness. If you haven't yet, be sure to join our community over on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Anxious Love Coach. You can also request a 30-minute relationship anxiety assessment with either me or my co-coach Sheridan, depending on our availabilities, over on my website at www.anxiouslovecoach.com. I've got a superb relationship anxiety meditation available to you, also as thanks for subscribing to my email list. Thanks so much for being here and enjoy this episode. Hello, welcome back to the Anxious Love Coach podcast of episode whatever this is. It's so nice to be back, and today I have a very special guest. Just kidding, she's our person. It's Sheridan.
Hi everyone.
We're back.
Hello.
We're back. Hello. For me, it's been a little while. I think I just got married a month ago. Woohoo! So I'm glad to be back to Anxious Love Coach, glad to be back for podcasting and kind of slowly transitioning back into the swing of things. It's been very nice. And I recently moved back to Medellin, Colombia, and I have this beautiful Sheridan literally beside me. I can literally touch her body right now. We're sitting side by side, recording this in my little bedroom with really kind of shitty lighting and on a green king-size bed together, really cozy, and just kind of leaning into my computer talking to you. So it's very intimate and beautiful, and we even turned off the fan on this hot day so that we could have wonderful sound for you. So this means a lot to us that you are listening to us. We have sacrificed so much.
Self-sacrifice.
I'm just a martyr for podcasting. Anyway, we are in the midst of, or we just finished creating something that we have never created before, and we're going to talk about it today. But what Sheridan and I would like to share with you today is actually on what to do when you are feeling agitated with your partner. And as many of you guys know, Sheridan is, in addition to being an outstanding yoga therapist with a real incredible wisdom on nervous system awareness and polyvagal theory and all this stuff, she's also a phenomenal relationship anxiety coach. So she's the expert on that. I'm going to be asking her a lot of questions on this and learning things myself. And at the end, we're going to be sharing a way for you to learn more about this because from a relationship anxiety perspective, I think that this is super awesome. So I'm really glad that you're here.
Yeah, it's so exciting.
It's really, really nice. How are you?
Doing so well. It feels like it was curious today. I was on the Facebook group and I hadn't been on there for a little while, and somebody actually said, like, when is the podcast coming back?
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't do all the things. I can do everything, but not all at once.
Yeah, so it's cool to be here. It's also cool because it feels like last time you were here, I only just began working with Anxious Love Coach. We just connected about it, and it's where everything began. So it's like this real full circle moment as well, to be together in person again, creating new versions of Anxious Love Coach and stepping into like our unique specialities. And and just to see everyone in the containers like thriving, it's just, I feel like it's one of those moments where you look back in life, you're like, yeah, we did something good. Yeah.
I remember that literally a little more than a year ago when I first moved to Medellin. Sheridan and I had only spoken on like WhatsApp.
Yeah.
I think we did like a WhatsApp call because she was one of my clients in one of my like beta test programs when I had like no followers. I was still teaching yoga, but just kind of like exploring this relationship.
I was still teaching yoga.
Yeah. You were still teaching yoga. I was exploring just like speaking about relationship anxiety in like secret corners of the internet because it was still such a taboo to admit that we had relationship anxiety. And now look at us. And I remember when I needed help, I was like, who was my best client? And it was Sheridan, and she was here in Medellin, and she had a lot of training. And I was like, is this woman trainable? And she was. And so now she is here teaching all of you on this podcast stuff that I actually don't have the skills to teach. So, oh, how the tables have turned. Yeah. So, how are we going to teach our audience today how to work through agitation towards your partner? First of all, maybe we should define agitation.
Yeah. So, agitation. I mean, my definition for agitation is anything that makes you feel less than at peace and grounded in your body, and you do something that sometimes you're like, I don't know if I would really want to do that again. I don't know if I would want to handle that situation again. Or you don't feel good in yourself, right? So you go into like those thought spirals or those shame cycles, or maybe you start feeling really, really, really good about yourself when you think that you're the best person in the world, but really you're just a little bit anxious and you need to kind of, get something out. But there's a clear like agitation, like activation in your body and in your mind, and your mind starts running, and maybe your breath, you hold your breath, or you get like you're breathing really quickly. Like there's a clear like physiological change in your experience, which is then manifested in your thoughts. I think of it like this.
I think of this also. I think like sympathetic nervous system activation, like sweaty palms and elevated heart rate. And sometimes this experience, if we were to focus on it, we would label it uncomfortable. But because we're not aware of it, but on some level it is uncomfortable, and we're trying to avoid it. And sometimes the way that our avoidance of these emotions strategically, this sentence is not coming out the way I want it to, but as a means of not feeling that, we might try to control our external environment because internally our environment feels out of control. I also think it's worth mentioning the experience of numbness that can come up if you are perpetually in this agitated state. Your body is a brilliant machine, and it wants to conserve energy. So if it perceives that it's running on high energy, which I am hearing my computer working hard right now, and I'm hopeful that you don't hear the fan underneath this recording, right? I'm hopeful that it's okay. But just like your computer sometimes has to work hard when it's perceiving a lot of information being processed, if your brain is on overload and your body's on overload, pumping adrenaline, trying to find safety, if you're in that state for a long time, your body has this brilliant mechanism of a shutdown, which we might interpret as numbness. And relationships can be inherently triggering and activating and arousing. So if that's a lot for your lovely nervous system, it can really be tricky.
Yeah.
So now that we've made a definition of agitation and numbness, what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah. So we've already kind of started with noticing that it's something that's happening inside of your body. And so today we're going to look at how to use the brilliant machine that your body is, and your awareness of that to transform those moments where maybe you're feeling really numb towards your partner. Maybe you're feeling really annoyed or agitated, and maybe you can't really pinpoint why. Or maybe it's like something small has happened. I'll tell a story about like my chicken sandwich in a second. Like something small has happened, or maybe literally nothing has happened and you're not even seeing them. But for some reason, when you got on a call with them, like you just felt like, oh, like no. There's like disgust, there's anxiety, there's maybe even some rage coming up. We're essentially going to take a body-based perspective at moving through those experiences and moving beyond those experiences so that you can feel grounded and be with the person that you love in the way you want to be, which is in love.
Mm-hmm. I also, I've some of my favorite annoying experiences are when I'm like having a totally normal, healthy, functioning day and nothing has gone wrong and everything's wonderful. And then I go on Instagram or TikTok and someone says, if your man isn't doing X, Y, and Z for you, dump him. And then I'm like, wait,
he doesn't do that
he doesn't do that for me.
Yeah.
So I either think I'm doing something wrong or I go to my partner and like just yell at him for no reason. It's like, why aren't you doing this for me? I remember one of my biggest triggers. Actually, I can't say it was my biggest trigger, but I remember a day where I got triggered, a very specific story or on TikTok, and it was like someone was saying, if you give your woman flowers and you don't like cut the stems and unwrap it and put it in a vase, you're giving her a task and like you're just giving her more work to do. And I was like, oh shit, I've been receiving flowers wrong this whole time. Apparently my guy is still a jerk because he got me flowers but he didn't put them in a vase. I have to do all the work. What a shit human.
Oh god, I wish you could see our faces right now.
We're face palming. It totally discounts the fact that maybe while I'm putting it in the vase, I'm enjoying the experience and I'm thinking about how sweet the gesture was. But the point is, we can be like totally content with our days and not realize what we're missing until someone tells us that we should be unhappy about it.
Yeah.
Right? And then it can just ruin your day. It's like that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? You were totally fine until you saw that TikTok and someone told you that you were missing out.
Yeah. Or like you were totally fine until you walked into, this is one that has happened to me. I walked into the bathroom and I saw that Andres, who is normally so meticulous in the bathroom, had left the seat up. And in my mind, I was like, that's it. He doesn't care about our home. He doesn't love me. How can I be with a man that doesn't love me? How can I, and then you walk in and you're like passive aggressively, babe, why is the seat up?
My conscious communication course is great for that. But for today, we would love to explore what's happening when you're feeling numb or agitated in your relationship and really how to move beyond it. I think you had did you have another you had another story?
Yeah. And I think that, like, being honest, this story is where I felt I kind of, the story and the events that happened afterwards, that was kind of the slap in the face that I needed to take this seriously, to be honest. I was like, oh yeah, relationship anxiety, that's how interesting, how curious. But in the back of my mind, I was like, no, I'm perfect. I'm perfect, but also I really don't like myself. It was this weird experience.
They usually go together.
Yeah. But, just so that you are where we are, basically a couple of years ago now, I was actually working really hard, and, it gets pretty hot here in Medellin. And sometimes I would come home and I walked about 30 minutes to get home. So I would come home and I was sweaty and I was tired and I had a really long day, and I was just, ready to come home to the beautiful apartment that I had cleaned that morning before going to work. And it had happened a few times now where Andres, he was actually working at home for a little while. And so, I set everything up and I said to him a few days in a row, I said, babe, can you please just take the rubbish out? Like when you wake up, when you do your stuff, can you please take the rubbish out? He goes, yeah, sure, babe. And like on day 1, he didn't do it, but it was okay because it was about 3/4 full. And then on day 2, he didn't do it. And I was like, okay. And then on day 3, he didn't do it. And on day 4, he didn't do it. And on day 5, he didn't do it. And so there was this one particular time where I walk in the door and I walk past the rubbish because the kitchen was at the front of the house. And like there's flies and I can see dirty banana peels. And there's like open chip packets and like a yogurt, like the top of a yogurt thing. And it was disgusting. And I felt like my whole body, like it was rage. I was beyond agitated. I was so upset. And so I was like, oh, fine. And I kind of walked past him and he says hello and I was obviously annoyed. And then I went to the bathroom. And if you guys know me, I used to be a bit of a Googler. So I Googled something like what to do when your partner won't take out the rubbish. And this was like pulling up on so many months and even years where I was like getting this message of like, don't settle for a partner. Like housework needs to be 50-50. And at the time I was founding a women's empowerment foundation. Like it was a really big deal. And I went up to him and I threw him out. I said, you need to leave. This is not going to work. You can't respect me. And I threw him out. And I felt like it was one of those moments. I think I may have even thrown something over the balcony. Like,
I would love to watch this movie.
Yeah, it was really bad. And he was understandably upset. And I was understandably upset. And it was a really big moment in our relationship. And naturally, as you guys can understand, he left, that was it. This is over. It's done. He took his stuff and he left. And then I think it was maybe like a couple of days afterwards. And I reached out to him. I love you and I want to be with you and we're going to work it out. And we ended up in this like back and forth for so long. It felt like so long. It's exhausting to be in that position. You can't focus on anything else. It's not nice. And we kind of entered back into it and I noticed little things would happen, right? Like he still wasn't taking out the rubbish. And then let's be honest, he's still learning. He told me he took it out last week, but he actually just tied the knot and left it next to the door.
He's halfway there.
Yeah.
Made it to the door.
It's a work in progress. No, he's usually actually pretty good with it. This event stuck in his mind as well. But then we ended up breaking up and getting back together for a couple of weeks. And to be completely honest with you, there was a moment where I was like, okay, I don't know if I can swear.
You can swear.
Yeah, I was like, I need to get my shit together.
Oh, I thought you were going to say way worse.
No, I don't have worse. Maybe later. I was like, I need to get my shit together because this is not working. And it's really, I trusted. I was like, there are better ways to deal with this. There has to be. I just couldn't figure it out, right? Like I was like, okay, there's another way, but I didn't know at that time how to figure it out. And yeah, tell me I'm not alone. Do you have something like this?
What?
Do you have a story like this? Tell me I'm not alone.
Oh, how many stories I have like this?
I know.
I mean, and I think when I'm listening to Sheridan and maybe when you're listening to Sheridan, you're maybe like thinking, oh, they never have moments like this anymore. They're on the other side. It's not quite like that. It's a lot more nuanced. And I think it has a lot more to do with how we respond or how we recover and how we repair after these things happening. So on the one hand, what we're going to teach you today is like what to do in the moment. And simultaneously, it's important to know that you can do all the healing work and shit still happens. And it doesn't mean that you suck. So an equal skill that's just as important to cultivate that I'm not going to cover here today is how to repair after a rupture. I think I do have a podcast somewhere in the art somewhere back there with Molly Burney on like how to fight fair or something like that. That's a good one. But do I have stories like this? Yeah. For like a year, Preston kept stepping on my foot.
How does that? I don't understand how that happens.
It'll be like we're both walking out the front door to go take a walk, and he'll be in front of me and turn around to lock the door, and I'll still be behind him but in front of the door, and he like just my foot is there, and we both are tall and we both have big feet, and we walk close to each other a lot because we love each other and we like to close the space between each other. But inevitably, when you close the space between each other, sometimes you step on each other's feet. And if you dance together in life, literally and figuratively, you will step on each other's feet in the practice of learning how to dance. So he kept stepping on my foot, and like I actually talked about this in Both Feet In, our women's 6-month group program yesterday. And there's like a whole polarity standpoint on this, but there was it just kept happening at the grocery store, on our walks, on our ways up and down the stairs. Like it got to the point where I like had anxiety walking beside him. And when that anxiety would come up, Preston would pick up on it, and he would like walk like awkward distances away from me. And I'm like, can you not walk beside me without worrying that you're going to step on me or ah? So it was just a really ugly dynamic. And then one day I bit him in response, which I don't know if that's the most nervous system based reaction, but that was a polarity. That was actually, in my programs, we teach like the 3 levels of relating, and biting my partner playfully is actually a stage 3 type of communication. But we're not going to be covering stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 today.
But it is worth noting that in order for you guys to get to stage 3, because I see this happen a lot with clients that come in, and some of the times I work with one-on-one clients who, they have relationship anxiety, but maybe there was like a rupture of trust at some point, so they don't really feel like a group program is going to be supportive for them. And I would agree, right? But like when you have been in a dynamic where you're what I might call like volatile. So you and your partner have maybe like Andres and I, like you were breaking up and you were getting back together, you were fighting a lot.
There's a lack of stability there.
Yeah, there's a lack of safety and there's a lack of trust. And as much as we want to bring polarity in, unless you guys have an understanding that there is safety, trust, respect, then you biting me because I'm on edge. My nervous system is on edge with you because we don't have that safety and respect. Like I'm going to want to hit you because you just bit me. What the hell?
Right. It's worth noting it was a pretty playful bite.
Yeah.
And that we had done a lot of work to get to the point where a bite is okay and fun and kind of sexy. Yeah. But before you can get to that point, you really need to know how to, I think, regulate your nervous system and keep things in perspective overall, and be able to not spiral, even though sometimes you do.
Yeah, it's just like maybe instead of throwing them out, or like in my case, instead of throwing him out, it's more like, okay, let me take 30 minutes to deal with this. And,
that makes sense. Yeah. So when we're in this like triggered, agitated state, what's happening here?
Yeah, good question.
Like why? It's just the trash. Like it's no big deal. Like why do you feel full of rage?
Yeah. So there's 2 things that are kind of dancing around that scenario. One is that it's triggering maybe, and it's going to depend on each person and each scenario, right? But it could be triggering maybe a memory. So maybe there's like, I don't have a memory for that one, but maybe for somebody else, it was like, their dad never took out the trash and their mom ended up hating their dad. And like, so therefore it's triggering like a memory that you have that's really uncomfortable and that hasn't been integrated and healed and processed.
Yeah. Or dad just like didn't help around the house at all, or mom had all the responsibilities, things like that.
Yeah. Or you just saw that as you were growing up and you saw that most people of our generation have seen the women take along a lot of the housework. So that's really valid to be triggered.
Resentfully, I should
Yeah.
say. Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's like there's something else going on, and in your mind, you're making it mean something. Making it mean something sounds like it's something that you're doing really consciously, but this is something that you would probably be doing really unconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
So for me in that scenario, I had this, because I was working at women's empowerment, I was like, oh, I had this idea that a good man, or a man that was worthy of me, would be doing these really specific things. And one of them was remembering to take out the rubbish, like in a specific way. And while we would all agree that hygiene is important, and that's a really valid need, a good man isn't defined by how often he takes out the rubbish. It's a little bit more nuanced than that.
Right. It's not this if-then black and white,
Yeah.
like cookie cutter checklist. Like he could have a bunch of other qualities and that are amazing, and that's just his shadow. He just doesn't take out the trash.
Yeah.
And that's human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like there's something that's being triggered here that's reminding you of a memory, or you have some story in your mind about, or in the very deep down, dark, unconscious of your mind about what love should be, where your relationship should be right now, the types of things your man should do or say, or maybe you're just kind of carrying a lot of weight and you're tired, like in the foot situations. Like it's happened so many times that like I'm carrying a lot of emotion around it. And you know what your nervous system is doing, like your amygdala literally hundreds of thousands of times a minute, it is asking two questions. It is asking, am I safe and am I loved? Am I safe and am I loved? Am I safe and am I loved? Just hundreds and thousands of times a minute. So when something happens that gives off the vague or the supposed idea that you are either unsafe, so maybe you're with a partner that could possibly end up breaking your heart later on, or, you know, you have this idea of like, this partner isn't safe for me for some reason. Maybe you've lost a partner in the past and you're feeling like if I lead and eat deeper into this relationship, I'll lose this one. It feels unsafe. Or am I loved? So if I'm making the rubbish be the defining factor of whether or not I'm loved, my amygdala is experiencing this, oh, I'm not safe and I'm not loved. So what do I need to do? I need to put my nervous system into a fight, a flight, or a freeze state. And when we're in that fight, flight, or freeze, that's when we feel like really, really anxious, or that's when we feel really angry and we need to do something, we need to act, we need to lash out. Or that's when we freeze. And when we're freezing, that's actually the nervous system state where you actually start feeling really numb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's worth noting that, you know, doing this work doesn't mean you become super complacent. It doesn't mean you become a doormat, but rather you're able to really communicate from a place of love for both yourself and the person that you might be frustrated with. It's like, I think a lot of us, when we're going into an interaction that's painful like this, we're almost unconsciously deciding between whether to love the other person and bulldoze ourselves, or whether to love ourselves and bulldoze the other person. And when you're able to regulate your nervous system in the moment and question these, first of all, identify these long held beliefs, but then question them and be willing to be a little bit suspicious, then you're able to kind of hold multiple conflicting truths in the same space. I really believe that, and actually my teacher said this many years ago, Steffi Price, that triggers happen out of a love for truth. And I'll get to that in just a little bit. But in that moment, you're wondering, what's true? Am I the wrong one, or is my partner the wrong one? Who's wrong? I need to figure out who's wrong so that I can figure out who's right, and then we can fix it. And then this is never, ever going to happen again, because if this happens again, I'm going to be screwed, and I'm not safe, and I'm not loved, right? So it's very important to, be able to notice in the moment what is happening for you. And how do we do that?
Well, if I really truly wanted to teach everyone perfectly, I would say join literally any one of our programs.
Yes.
So there is that, keeping that in mind. You want to just start you have to begin with an awareness of what's happening inside of your body. Yes. And I actually like to begin identifying your nervous system state based on your communication, because the communication that you have is something so manifest, it's so tangible, right? And it's pretty hard to ignore the words that are coming out of your mouth, but it's pretty easy to ignore maybe like the slight tingling that you're having in your chest and the slight contraction of your pelvic floor muscles.
Right, yeah. I was just going to ask, how do you catch it?
Yeah.
How do you catch it in the moment? So through noticing the word choices that you're using?
Yeah, you can notice the word choices that you're using. You can notice your thought patterns. You can notice your physical sensations. And this probably isn't the best place to go through all of them, but just some ideas is like if you're noticing that you're feeling really anxious, right? So I feel really anxious right now. Maybe you're feeling like that there's something wrong and I need to fix it. You're feeling flighty. It's hard to
Urgency.
Concentrate. There's that. Yeah, if you're like reassurance seeking and you're looking for urgency, chances are you're in like a flight response, right?
Yeah, or to get rid of the urgency, I guess we should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in that fight or flight.
Yeah. And then there's like, if you feel like you need to really just like get out of there now.
Or break up
now. Like it has to be fixed now. We have to know now. But like there's a physical sensation of like, I gotta leave. I gotta get out. Like I need to go for a walk. And, maybe you do choose to go for a walk. That's actually not a bad idea. But that sensation of like, I have to, or I have to get somebody else out.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to leave. I need you to go. I need you to X, Y, Z. I need them to like, there's this idea of like, I need someone to really do something for me right now and change what they're doing so that then I can feel at peace. And most of the time that's actually not what's going to help you feel at peace, but we feel that way.
Right. It's a trap.
Yeah.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. But we got really self-centered in a really understandable way. We're looking to protect ourselves, right? So that's when we're looking for the truth of like, when we're feeling like I need to figure out what the truth is and which is the right way and who's wrong and who has got to blame. Yeah. Who am I blaming for this? Whose fault is it? You're in fight or flight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another way to notice it is if you're people pleasing. Or if you're shut down and if you can't keep eye contact with the person that you're in the conversation with, if you want to avert your gaze or you want to get really far away from them or you want to get really, really close to them.
Yeah.
Like you almost want to intimidate them. It's your body saying, oh, I don't think I'm safe. I don't think I'm loved.
Mm-hmm. I definitely have, over the many years of doing this work, noticed that I have like a certain cocktail of sensations that lets me know now is not the time to make a giant decision.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, if I'm feeling this particular drop in my stomach, this is not the time to say exactly what's on my mind.
Yeah, I remember I have that as well. And I remember one story that you shared months ago where you had some feelings about your engagement ring and you knew that you shouldn't have said something in that state, but you said it anyway.
Yes.
And you're like, I knew I shouldn't have.
I knew I shouldn't have, and I regret it to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's these, for me, it's a very specific flavor a flavor of an inner experience, which includes thoughts, sensations, and emotions. But that particular cocktail, I now label as a sense of righteousness. And righteousness, literally, I can think of a very limited number of instances where it served me.
Yeah.
It hasn't served me on social media. Chances are it probably doesn't serve any of you guys on social media either. I have a lot to say about that. That's another podcast. Whee! Anxious love coach bitching about the internet. But yes, it's this righteousness, anger, not necessarily. Anger can be really cool if you use it in the right way. But over time, I think you guys listening, if you do this work, you'll start to notice that there are very specific like feeling flavors or feeling signatures or recipes of sensations that you feel over and over and over, and it's a very familiar feeling because it's a very familiar inner experience, and the reason it's so familiar is because it's old. It's because you've had it before. It's because it's not actually tied to this experience right now in this moment. You know, that's why when Sheridan was saying that this is because potentially of a memory, that's why it feels familiar. So if it's a familiar feeling of agitation, that's a good sign that there's some work to be done here that has very little, not none, but little to do, less to do with this circumstance than your mind is telling you it is.
Yeah. In fact, I have a little task, dear listener, if you're interested. I want you to think back on the last discussion or maybe argument that you had with a loved one. Maybe it was your partner, maybe it was like your mom. And think about how that didn't go well, right? It was the type of thing where you walked away from, you're like, oh, that did not go well. That was more destructive than it was positive. What was happening in your body before you initiated the first thing you said? It doesn't matter if they said something beforehand, but what was happening in your body before you said that sentence, or what was happening in your body while you were having the conversation? That's going to
call this being in two places at once.
Yeah.
You know, were you able to notice the outer as much as the inner, or the inner as much as the outer? Yeah, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's going to give you at least a starting point to understand your unique blueprint, because, you know, we were talking about this as we were creating the thing that we're about to share with you. Oh my gosh, how exciting. But everyone has a unique blueprint inside of their nervous system, and yours is, I can talk about it, I can point to it, I can educate you on it, but yours is going to be so radically different to, you know, like Stephanie from Arkansas, right? And it's your job and your invitation is to learn about yours, understand it, minimize it, and then come back to you, because you are a person who is intuitively creative. You know how to speak with people. You know what you need. You know what your partner needs. You know, you have all of these amazing talents that are just a part of being human. It's just that when we are in this deregulated state, it's really hard to access those skills. Or it's hard to access, you know, the skills that you learned from the communication course that you did or the Instagram post that you read. Like, we forget about them. We're not focused on that. We're focused on getting out of danger.
Yeah, and also it's, you know, information is not equal to transformation, which is why Instagram, TikTok, YouTube are not therapy. They're not usually embodied experiences. Most people are not scrolling the internet while also using it as a mindfulness exercise. Can you imagine doing that? Do you feel
it's awful?
If I were to use Instagram as a mindfulness experience, I would probably notice like the carpal tunnel slowly evolving inside my thumb on my right side. Ugh,
like my whole body just like, ugh.
Dude, I was at the gym doing this I don't know my exercises, but I was like doing this like deadlift barbell curl thing, but with like narrow arms. Right. And my right wrist was like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. And my palms were facing up. And I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. And I told my teacher, and they're like, yeah, it's the phones.
Really? They said that?
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, little segue, but you know, we're not using social media mindfully, and so we're the information that you get on there does not equal to you having a long-term relief and having trust in yourself, which, by the way, self-trust is really what's on the other side of this work.
Yeah.
You know, when you trust yourself, you get triggered a heck of a lot less. And even if you do, you generally interpret your triggers as your stuff. You don't see it as it's everybody else's stuff but mine. So, can we talk about what we're doing here? And by what we're doing, I mean what Sharon is doing.
Yeah, but before we do that, can I ask you, because okay, in my mind right now, you said something earlier, you were like, this is an old feeling, and nervous system specialists it's like, yeah, it literally is, because it's literally in the oldest part of your nervous system, the limbic system. But it reminds me of something that you have said before, and you said that you would talk about it a couple minutes ago, which is like the search for truth. So can you elaborate on that before we move on?
Yes. When I get, and I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier on in this episode, triggers happen because of a love for truth. When we get triggered, it's usually because we have some kind of belief or we've been operating out of some perceived sense of reality, whether that's our reality or a reality of how the world works, or a reality of who we think our partner is, or a reality of how we think men are, or people are, whatever. It just is some kind of set perception of reality, whatever that may be. And then suddenly that gets questioned. The blatantly opposite reality comes into your vision. So a really easy way to imagine this is like, an affair. You think you know who your partner is, and then you realize that all the time that you've spent with your partner, something else was happening behind the scenes. That is one of the biggest triggers I can think of. It's like it makes you think your whole life has been a lie. When we get triggered, we think our whole lives have been a lie, or our whole life would be a lie if we were to accept this potentially opposite reality. So it forces us into this reckoning of what is true. What is true? Am I right? Have I been right this whole time? Or have I been wrong all this time? And I actually believe that what we're being invited to do is actually expand our capacity to interpret a bigger, more nuanced reality, one that includes contradictory realities, which is such a critical skill to learn, to step out of black and white thinking and rather to see a black and white array that sometimes looks gray and like threads of black and big bars of white, and to like start to have a much more colorful perspective. I forget who said this quote, but I kind of live by it lately. It's like, the more I learn, the less I know. Have you heard that one?
I've heard you say that.
It's so beautiful because, you think you know something, and then you get triggered and realize that you don't actually know that thing. And now you're trying to know it, and then you realize it's actually unknowable, because the more you start knowing, the more you realize there's more to know.
And that you know nothing.
That
and
you know
everything
nothing.
You thought you knew, you actually don't know anyway.
Yeah.
And even this, we don't even know for sure.
No, this podcast could be all bullshit in another context.
Yeah, it already is, just because we said it.
Yes, exactly. So, I think our expanding love of truth is the reason why we get triggered. And every time we get triggered, if for a moment, you have one part of you that's scrambling to figure out the truth and figure out who's right and who's wrong, and there has to be somewhere else in the mind, some other part of you maybe witnessing this whole experience that is secretly giggling at the magic of it all and like, life is about to change for me. I'm about to become a little bit more well-rounded. I'm about to get a little bit bigger. I'm about to see things a little bit bigger. Or maybe I'm about to get triggered on this exact thing for another 2 years before I realize how stupid how silly this game is. Who's right, who's wrong? At some point you arrive in the I don't know-ness of it all and the isness of it all. And that is actually kind of the truth, I think. So, in essence, triggers happen out of a love for truth. They happen when conflicting realities that exist inside of us aren't integrated and accepted. And they also happen as a result of rigid beliefs, which are created by past memories and the pain associated with those past memories. So I believe that triggers can be used to be alchemized into just becoming a much more well-rounded, nuanced human being.
Yeah. I think there's something important about what you're saying as well, which is like, in order to be able to accept that reality, the isness of it all, the I don't knowing of it all, we have to make uncertainty and the unknown safe.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of people, I mean, particularly like right now, 2022, uncertainty has become something that has an inherent, almost like negative essence to it.
Badness.
We've just kind of assumed that, I don't know when we all made this agreement, right? We all just agreed, and it makes sense as well because it's the unknown. But I do feel that at some point in time, everyone just started thinking, oh, uncertain, bad.
Yeah.
Because it is unsafe, possibly, yes. And uncertainty also can be really exciting. And that's where all of the good stuff that happens in life, that's when you get to become a different person than you thought you could ever be. That's when you meet the man that you thought that didn't exist. That's when you unlock that joy that you didn't know was possible for you. But until we can feel really safe with uncertainty and just trust, okay, yeah, I don't know, and it's safe for me not to have the answers, then it's really difficult to actually get to that point of grayness, and we can listen to Natalie's beautiful words and just be like, yeah, cool, really nice.
I like words.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, so the moment you've all been waiting for, we've had both Feet In running for the last 6 months while the wedding, and so we've kind of put a lot of things on hold. I have a retreat coming up at the end of the year, but we also have something that Sheridan would also like to share.
Yeah. So in November, I'm going to be opening a 5-week program, and its name is Trigger to Truth. And you're listening this far, so you have an idea about what it's going to include. But essentially, I designed this program because at this point, I've been working with hundreds of clients and witnessing the processes of thousands of people. And I've noticed that there's this pattern. Someone gets triggered by an event, like your partner forgot to bring home the chicken or something like that.
Or take it out of the freezer.
Yeah, or buy the toothpaste that you like, or buy you flowers for your birthday, whatever it is, right? Your partner forgot to do that. And what happens to a lot of people, myself included sometimes, but what happens is we don't actually know how to do this magical dance in the moment where we regulate our nervous system, understand the trigger and how it might be connected to some truth of our past or some search for truth in our present, right? What Natalie and I have just been talking about. We can't do that dance of body awareness, mind awareness, and then also like grounded, loving communication, because we need that grounded, loving communication to take those moments of disappointment about the chicken or the flowers and actually turn them into the fun moments of intimacy and connection and really feeling like you're being loved and you're loving somebody in the way that you have been wanting to do for years. So what happens is we don't know how to do that. And because we don't know how to do that, we end up in those spirals of relationship anxiety that, let's be honest, they can last days and hours, and they can also last months or even years, depending on where you are. And that's when we're ruminating and we're doubting everything, second guessing, you're in your head, and like there's this underlying pervasive feeling of shame, and it ends up in you either completely deflecting or actually attacking yourself or your partner. And so the intention of this program is to teach you how to do that dance in the moment, regulate your nervous system, understand your triggers, access your own personal truth. Not the truth like I need to leave my partner right now, but the truth of like, okay, where is this really coming from? What is it reminding me of? What is this asking me to see differently? And who is this asking me to become that might be different to who I was yesterday? And then communicate that in a way that is loving and kind and compassionate for yourself and for your partner. And so that is it. That is the program that we're doing. You're invited. We're going to move through 6 different modules, and we will have all of this information up on a page for you as well to look at. We'll share that in a moment. But the 6 different modules are going to be like identifying, so going deep into, okay, how do I actually know when I'm feeling dysregulated, what's happening in my body? And then how do I get out of that state? How do I get grounded again? And then we move into finding your little pockets of truth and what your truth is. And then we take all of that outward. And how do you relate to your partner? How do you communicate in a way that embodies the values that you have, in a way that you're going to be really, really proud of, and in a way that is going to help them respond to you with love and care? And usually what happens when we get to this point is they say like that specific sentence that you've secretly been wanting to hear. Like they'll like, it's like weird. They'll just say that like thing that you're like, oh my God, and your whole body melts. And then we take a nervous system approach to being able to receive pleasure and love, and actually being able to enjoy the beautiful relationship that you've created, because it's something that you need to get used to. A lot of people need to get used to it. Just like we expand our capacity to be with pain, we also expand our capacity to be with pleasure, because we're here for that, right?
I have a harder time. I didn't realize how much harder it can be to be with pleasure than it is to be with pain.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a practice. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a practice. We begin on November 8th. We're going through all the way into December 6th. I chose this time strategically because, not everyone is based in the States and not everyone celebrates Thanksgiving, but usually around November, December, we are either deep in holiday celebration with our family and our friends and our partner, or we're getting ready for it. And this is the time of year where you're going to need to use, or you're possibly going to need to use these tools more than other times of year. So it's strategically created around those dates so that you can take the tools, go out and try them, and then come back to session and troubleshoot whatever went really well and whatever did not go really well. And also because I'm going to Australia to hang out with my beloved, beautiful Andres, and I'm taking him to meet my family. And
it's gonna be amazing.
I know. And I'm not back until November. So it works out really well. And it's available for men.
And tech animals and whoever.
Yeah,
this is
like
open to anybody,
anyone.
Non-gender binary, men, women. We have actually not had a program available to men because we've been teaching like women's embodiment or women's polarity. But this is a much more nervous system based work. So
evidence-based. Yeah.
So those of you that are kind of more data-driven junkies, this is going to be really exciting. You guys know I love taking a more spiritual approach, and while this program of course doesn't negate that, but this definitely takes a much more evidence-based approach. So I think that those of you that love evidence-based work are going to love this, and we're doing it all within the philosophy of Anxious Love Coach that you already love. And I say we, but it's really Sheridan, because this is a program run entirely by Sheridan. I helped write a little bit of the copy on your website.
Yeah, and I mean, you inform it, everything, and I think that's important to clarify. Everything that you speak to, even when you're not with me, I don't know how this happened, but we are very alike.
Yes, I agree.
And we're a really good partnership, and everything, like if you enjoy the type of thing that Natalie speaks to, yes, working with me will be different, but it is not going to stray far. It's the same philosophy. It's the same values. We're just kind of geeking out on the nervous system to support you in all the other stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, this is a much more niche program. It's smaller. It's more bite-sized. Sheridan is going to have the opportunity to offer one-on-one work for basically like an upgrade that is only available for people that sign up for this program. So this is, your way. This is not like a giant 6-month both feet in program like I did, where we cover a lot and there's a ton of crying and embodiment and like connection and people like hugging each other virtually. This is not that. This is much more educational. There are embodiment sessions, there are going to be Q&A, but this is much more just something for your toolbox with this very, very specific niche. And I also just want to emphasize that it's so cool that we're partnered together. Like sometimes I just marvel at how it's not opposite. It's like complementary.
Yeah.
Like I look at you and I feel like you are so exquisite with more trauma stuff and I'm like moving into the pleasure.
But that's like...
But they're so related. Like
and
pain and pleasure are so connected.
Oh gosh. I always, because I see it as like jigsaw pieces. Like if Anxious Love Coach was like one jigsaw with like not very many jigsaw pieces, you and I would be like the big jigsaw pieces that like slip together. And I also, this is just my thought, but I can envision a lot of people being really pulled towards working with maybe Natalie, maybe other people, but like experiencing more pleasure. Pleasure is delicious. We love it. And you might just notice, like, do you feel that maybe it would be supportive for you to have a sound, solid nervous system base before you lean into working with pleasure? Because if you kind of have like a little bit of an inkling that might be you, sign up.
Yes. The nervous system work is so... it's such a great foundation, especially if you're just getting started with this work. It's not just for relationships, although yes, Sheridan is teaching this nervous system based work in the context of attachment and relational work. I'm very excited to like hand over the reins to Sheridan for a couple reasons. Number one, because I'm selfish and tired of running all things. And number two, Sheridan's just really freaking good at what she does. She's been doing all the embodiment in Both Feet In, and people annoyingly like them more than my lectures.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I love it. And I have heard that some people sign up to work one-on-one with Sheridan and end up liking her more than me.
But don't tell them that I told you that.
Cat's out of the bag. No, I'm actually so happy about that because that is what I want. When you guys work with Sheridan, I don't want you to be wishing you were working with me. Why would I want that? Yeah. There is a reason I hired someone who does this better than I can. Yes, I'm the face of Anxious Love Coach, but I picked Sheridan because she has a unique skill set that I actually do not. And so she brings things to the table that I just can't. The nervous system is really cool, but A, I'm not that passionate about it. And B, it's not my area of expertise. I have other areas. So I'm really excited to hand this completely over to you. This is our first program run entirely by Sheridan. It's open-ended. Anyone can join. So if you are interested, you can go to www.anxiouslovecoach.com/triggered-to-truth. That's TRIGGERED to truth. I'm also going to link it in the show notes. You can also just go to anxiouslovecoach.com and it will be very easy to find because my website is very simple. So yes, if you are interested, just go ahead and sign up, and the calls will all be via Zoom. So, and everything will be recorded. So don't worry if you can't attend all the calls. These are all going to be available to you after the recordings, after the sessions. So that's it. Is there anything else that you feel inclined to share?
No, I will see you inside of Trigger to Truth. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day, your week, and looking forward to not seeing you because you're going to be with Sheridan. Will see you. And and if you do want to see me in person, I'm going to do another episode on this later. But if you want to come out to California, I have a 5-day retreat also coming up. So just feel free to head on over to the website. That's up there. Otherwise, there's always ways to work with me and or Sheridan. So I'm glad that you are here. All right, guys, have a great day, and thanks for tuning in today. Bye.
Bye.
If you love Anxious Love Coach, please leave us a review. Every month, I will be choosing one review, posting the username on my Instagram page, and offering that person a personalized voice message response to any question of their choice via private message. Thanks for listening to the Anxious Love Coach today. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Please also subscribe to my email list at anxiouslovecoach.com as I'm trying to reduce my reliance on social media. In exchange, you'll receive my free relationship anxiety meditation and a ton of information that I won't share to the general public about my personal challenges and learnings within relationship. If you would like to work with me and or my co-coach, head on over to my website and click Start Here. Thanks for listening, and catch you in the next episode.